Bonjour and welcome to French 1 with Mr. McCoy. This is lesson 15 dedicated to name and age. Our learning objective for this lesson is for you at the end of the lesson to be able to ask somebody else his or her name and age, and also to be able to state this information for somebody else. Okay? So, you should have picked up by now already the fact that we have a couple different ways to address individuals in French. Okay? We learned about asking other people's name. Okay, you learned about the way we use tu for peers, people with whom we are on familiar terms or expect to be on familiar terms. Use vous if you're addressing an individual on respectful or formal terms. Okay, or when you're addressing more than one person at the same time. Okay, the plural form is always vous. Okay, so that should be familiar by now. Okay, so first. It's all about asking for a person's name. Again, this should be review. Okay, on familiar terms, to ask somebody his or her name, we have comment t'appelles-tu? Comment t'appelles-tu? Okay, comment t'appelles-tu? Okay, and your book also gives tu t'appelles comment? Tu t'appelles comment? I'm not going to get down in a bunch of detail right now. Okay, but notice French is like English. In the sense that the basic structure is subject, verb, object. Okay, kind of might take that for granted. Okay, but for example, might say I like hamburgers. Okay, the basic structure in both language is subject, I, like the verb, hamburgers the object. That's the basic structure. Okay, you'll notice in the first question I gave you, comment t'appelles-tu? Okay, I haven't taught you that explicitly, but notice the verb and the object switch places. Okay, tu is the subject pronoun. Appelle, okay, actually t'appelles is the verb. Here, the subject comes after the verb. We call that inversion. That's one way of asking a question. Okay. Now another less formal way, a more familiar way of asking the same question, is to keep the subject here, then the verb, and then put the question word at the end. Okay. So that gives you tu t'appelles comment. Okay. Now, my preference is comment t'appelles-tu? You'll hear that more often. But again, I said this is what your book gives you. Okay? But be familiar with both. Okay? So repeat with me real quick. Comment t'appelles-tu? Comment t'appelles-tu? Or tu t'appelles comment? Tu t'appelles comment? Okay? What is your name? Now, asking about age. You have two ways of asking for somebody's age on familiar terms, okay? One I prefer, quel âge as-tu? Quel âge as-tu? I'll teach you this soon. We're actually using the verb to have. We're talking about age, okay? If you want to think about it in literal terms, in French we have a certain number of years, okay? In English, we are so-and-so years old, okay? But in French, we say that we have a certain number of years. You're going to use the verb for avoir, okay? Never the verb to be, okay? You can say you are old or you are young, okay? But talking about your age in years is always the verb to have, avoir, okay? And also, here you have the verb subject, okay? They're inverted. There's a hyphen between them. That's why that hyphen is there, okay? Quel âge as-tu? Quel âge as-tu? That's one I'd like you to learn, okay? Quel âge as-tu? Quel âge as-tu? Quel âge as-tu? Okay? Now again, your book also gives you the same question, but with the question, the interrogative expression at the end. That gives tu as quel âge? Tu as quel âge? Okay? That's also possible. Okay? So that's how to ask a person you're on familiar terms with, or expect to be on familiar terms with, his or her name and age. Okay? Now, formal terms, again, this should be reviewed, okay? How to ask somebody his or her name in a respectful, polite way, okay? You should know this by now, okay? Repeat with me. Comment vous appelez-vous? Comment vous appelez-vous? Comment vous appelez-vous? Comment vous appelez-vous? Okay? Now again, I said you can kind of rework a question, put the interrogative expression at the end. But if we're on respectful terms with the person, that's probably not even appropriate, so I'm not going to put that here. Okay. Now, how do we ask a person his or her age in formal terms? Okay. Then we'd say, quel âge avez-vous? Quel âge avez-vous? Okay. Again, we have a form of the verb avoir. I'll teach you how to conjugate that soon. Okay. Followed by the subject. Okay. They're inverted again. There's a hyphen. Quel âge avez-vous? Okay. So the way I ask a person on formal terms his or her name and age. Comment vous appelez-vous? Comment vous appelez-vous? Quel âge avez-vous? Quel âge avez-vous? Okay. Now, before we go any further, if you're actively listening, you may be thinking, "Oh, Mr. McCoy, if I'm on formal terms with the person, why am I asking his or her age?" And if you ask yourself that question, bravo. That's a great question. Okay. And I'm going to cop out and just say that I'm just showing you how to do it. I'm not saying that this would ever be an appropriate question to ask. Okay. So, bravo if you thought about that. Okay. Now, last part. Stating one's name and age. Again, this first part should be reviewed. State your age in French. Je m'appelle such and such. Okay. Moi, je m'appelle Brian McCoy. Or moi, je m'appelle Monsieur McCoy. Okay. Now, I mentioned talking about how old we are in years. We use the form of the verb avoir, to have. Okay. The first person singular form is a. Okay. So I say, for example, I'm 35 years old. I would say, j'ai 35 ans. Actually, I haven't taught you to count that high yet. Okay. For example, you are 15. Okay. You would say, j'ai 15 ans. J'ai 15 ans. You're 18. J'ai 18 ans. J'ai 18 ans. If you're 13, j'ai 13 ans. Now, a couple notes. The word for year, an. Repeat with me. An. Nasal. An. Okay? Don't pronounce the N. It's nasal. An. It's a masculine noun. Okay? So, for example, if your 1-year-old little brother could speak French, he would say, j'ai un an. J'ai un an. Okay? You get a bonus point if you can teach your 1-year-old son or son, daughter, brother, sister to say that. Okay? Also, never pronounce the S here. Okay? Never. The general rule is final consonants are silent in French. Okay? Especially if it's an S that you write on a plural noun. Okay? So say, again, if you're 14, j'ai 14 ans. Don't ever pronounce that S. Please, don't let me hear you pronounce an S at the end of it. Okay? I'm not even going to say it on this film. Okay? So, again, I'm 16, j'ai 16 ans. I'm 17, j'ai 17 ans. I'm 18, j'ai 18 ans. Okay? And again, we can leave off the years in English, but we always have to keep that in French. Okay? Okay? You can't just say the number. I say en. Okay? Alright, let's practice that. That'll be the end of this lesson 15. Okay? Merci et au revoir.